In the age-old conversation of great Marshall amp designs, I often see the usual suspects, the Plexis, the JCM 800, sometimes the Jubilee. But one amp is almost always left out of the conversation. And that's a shame, because when it is mentioned, it's often regarded as Marshall's last great amp design. Let's find out why. Hi, I'm Steve. Welcome to my studio. Since the late 1960s Super Lead design, the evolution of Marshall amps has been built upon a foundation that's usually based on EL34 power tubes. The JCM 800, JCM 900, etc. all kind of come from this lineage. An earlier 100-watt Marshall design, the JTM 45/100, was built upon a KT66-based power section that some players really dig, but over time, that design kind of fell by the wayside. It was this fact that led designer Steve Dawson to envision and later design the Vintage Modern. He imagined it as sort of a what if. What if Marshall had moved forward and evolved that circuit instead of going the Super Lead JCM 800 route? Now, looking at the amp, you'll see the standard Marshall complement of controls. Master volume, presence, bass, middle, and treble are all here. Some evolutionary features include a great sound and digital reverb, a mid-boost switch, and dynamic range switch. In the out position, the gain response is similar to that of a JTM 45. And while it will crunch up at higher gain and volume settings, this is largely somewhat of a clean mode, just like the amps that inspired it. For this video, I'll be using those speakers and microphones. I'll leave a link up there and in the description for more information about my miking scheme. It's important to remember that this isn't and doesn't try to be a two-channel amp. These are more or less modes, not channels. So when you switch between the channels, there's probably going to be a significant volume difference. I'm using the 100-watt Model 2566 head variant of the Vintage Modern. Now, one of the first things you're going to notice when you look at the control panel is there are two gain controls labeled Detail and Body. If you're familiar with old Plexi-style amps, you can think of these as sort of like the volume controls for channel 1 and channel 2 with the channels jumped. The amp's designer, Steve Dawson, says that one thing that always bugged him about Marshall amp designs moving forward was that while they sounded great with guitars that were equipped with humbuckers, an amp such as the JCM 800 tended to sound kind of thin when you plugged in a guitar loaded with single coil pickups. The separate detail and body gain controls are an attempt to rectify this. When I turn up the detail control, you'll notice the mid and high frequency ranges increase. When I turn the body control, you'll notice it filling in the lower frequencies. It's a different effect from just turning up the bass control, as it's boosting the input gain of the low end frequencies as well as any saturation and harmonics that go with it. This combination makes it really easy to dial in a great sound. Now, if I grab my Tele, this guitar is loaded with single coil pickups, which are often lower output, so we'll need to turn up the gain. Now, with a single gain control, This could result in an overemphasis on the higher frequencies, leading to a thinner sound. Having separate detail and body gain controls lets us dial in the gain exactly how we want it. And now we've got a nice fat sound that's not too bright or brittle sounding without having to do much to the EQ at all. I know I said this mode is largely a clean mode, but just like those earlier amps that inspired it, if we crank up the master volume, and in this case, the gain, we can get a really nice old school crunch that lends itself well to some great classic rock sounds or even some nice bluesy Strat tones. Check it out. Now, to me, this sounds fantastic, and it's really touch responsive. Set like this, I'm basically playing a crank plexi, and it feels incredible. Now, if I engage the mid boost, I get a nice little push in the low mids and mid-range area, and it also adds a little drive. I think I prefer it with the mid boost out. Still, it's a cool option to have, and I'm sure it'll come in useful. This mode also takes drive pedals really well if we want a little more sauce on there for some lead playing. Here it is with a Tube Screamer. Now, if I engage the dynamic range switch, as I understand it, this adds another tube gain stage, giving us a wider dynamic range. and we can go from clean to a pretty rockin' mid-gain crunch. Once again, that just sounds and feels amazing. It's nice and fat, great sustain, cleans up nice if I back off on the guitar's volume. Just an all-around great sound. Now, I'm a big fan of running an amp at late breakup or even a mid-gain crunch and then using a pedal to slam the front end. Here as well, the Vintage Modern crushes. So I'm going to play a little bit and kick on a few drive pedals to give you a feel for how it reacts. Did I tell you? It sounds amazing with each of these pedals. And with those KT66 power tubes, it excels at those nasty, chunky riffs. Now, this is by no means a comprehensive review of all the things that the Vintage Modern can do. It's just a little collection of some of the great sounds I've found in this amazing amp. I would love to see the Vintage Modern get the Marshall Studio treatment and get a little 20-watt little brother to go along with the Studio Classic 20, the Studio Vintage 20, the little Jubilee, and whatever other ones Marshall's released. Now, I don't know the logistics of getting the KT66 down to a lower output volume, but, I mean, they did it with EL34, so they could do it with KT66s, right? Come on, Marshall, you can do it. Now, there are Marshalls out there with more channels, more drive, more bells and whistles, but in my opinion, pound for pound, this is one of the best amps Marshall has ever made, and it's just a shame that it's fallen by the wayside. So what are your thoughts? Were you aware of just how wide-ranging the Vintage Modern sound capabilities really are? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.